On May 20th, 2023, Manchester City clinched the Premier League trophy after Arsenal lost to newly promoted Nottingham Forest. This marks City's 5th league title in the last 7 seasons, a time span that's seen the club fend off talented teams, managerial masterminds, and even a global pandemic, all while saying goodbye to legendary talent of their own in the same breath that welcomed their replacements. But in spite of all the change City have endured, one thing has remained the same: Pep Guardiola. The Catalan coach is the ceaseless club constant and has overseen England's most dominant football dynasty since Alex Ferguson's Man United. And today we document that dominance as we analyze the most impressive football project of the 21st century and break down how Pep Guardiola created the Man City dynasty. Welcome back, guys. You're watching the Sideline Starters and my name is Andy, first team all sideline. If you're new around here, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. And once you've done that, let's get started. Guardiola arrived in the 2016-17 season. Manuel Pellegrini had barely managed to squeeze City into the top 4 and left Guardiola with the 3rd oldest squad in the entire league. He was asked to not only bring the title back to the Etihad, but to bring his own attractive style of football along with it. And to his credit, he tried, displacing fan favorite Joe Hart for Barcelona's Claudio Bravo, and signing technically gifted center-back John Stones from Everton, Ilkay Gundogan from Jurgen Klopp's Dortmund, and a 21-year-old Leroy Sané from Schalke. And while Pep's side would win their first 6 league games in a row, a dreadful October saw them drop points on 3 separate occasions, before losing to Chelsea, Leicester, and an up-and-coming Liverpool squad in December. But it's worth noting they signed Brazilian striker Gabriel Jesus in the winter window, and ended the season on fire, winning 6 of their last 8 games. But at that point, Antonio Conte's Chelsea had run away with the league, as City ultimately finished 3rd behind Tottenham. Claudio Bravo had unfortunately been a disastrous signing, and other than Sergio Aguero, not a single player on City's roster managed a double-digit goal tally. But Kevin De Bruyne had announced himself as a world-class midfielder that season, and the rest of City's squad were making strides in their development too, which gave Guardiola a foundation to build off of for his next season. Pep began the 2017-18 season by rebuilding the whole squad. Aging fullbacks Gal Clichy, Bakary Sagna, and Pablo Zabaleta were all released for free, while Alexander Kolarov was sold to Roma. This was to make way for the younger, faster, and stronger fullback duo of Kyle Walker and Benjamin Mendy. Pep had already begun phasing Yaya Toure out of his midfield and allowed both Samir Nasri and Fernando to leave for Turkey, allowing midfield genius Bernardo Silva to be signed from Monaco. And lastly, Pep corrected the Claudio Bravo debacle by signing Benfica's Brazilian sweeper Ederson, while also bringing center-half Aymeric Laporte from Bilbao to strengthen their defense. And so Guardiola's new team was ready to start the campaign, but worried Mancunians immediately after drawing to Everton on the 2nd match day. But that would be the last time City would drop points for the next 4 months, as Guardiola's side went on to break the Premier League record for most consecutive victories. On paper, Guardiola appeared to line his team up in a 4-3-3 shape, but in reality could be seen occupying something that looked a lot more like a 3-4-3, with Kyle Walker playing as a right-sided center-back, and jack-of-all-trades Fabian Delph coming into midfield as an inverted wing-back next to Fernandinho. Midfield maestros De Bruyne and David Silva were given creative freedom in the half spaces, while Sterling, Sané, and Aguero formed an absolutely lethal trio up top, as City steamrolled through the entire league, only losing 2 games all season and ultimately clinching the title with 5 games left to go, as Guardiola's side set the record for most wins, most goals, best goal difference, most points ahead of 2nd, and most points with 100, a feat that earned the team the nickname the Centurions. The team that only managed 1 double-digit scorer in the season prior suddenly found itself with 4. Leroy Sané took his game to a whole new level, nabbing the 3rd most goal contributions on the team, while Nicolas Otamendi stepped up to lead the back line in the absence of Vincent Kompany and Aymeric Laporte throughout the season. Guardiola had just completed the most dominant domestic campaign England had ever seen, but there was a threat to this dominance waiting just around the corner. Now, Guardiola wasn't the only manager improving his side since 2016. Germany's Jurgen Klopp had been steadily rebuilding Liverpool back into a team that could challenge for silverware. But Klopp would add the final pieces at the start of the 2018-19 season. Guardiola, on the other hand, was so trusting of his squad that he only made one marquee addition to the team, which was bringing over Algerian wizard Riyad Mahrez, and so both teams got off to a really impressive start, winning 6 of their first 7 games and level on points heading into their matchday 8 clash against each other. The game ended in a 0-0 draw and would appear to be a sneak peek of a potential title-deciding fixture. But Klopp and Guardiola's men would have to wait another 12 weeks to get their hands on each other again. But Man City brought the clutch gene this time around, beating Liverpool 2-1, which narrowed the gap to 4 points. That loss to City at the Etihad would be the only time Liverpool tasted defeat all season. But unluckily for them, Guardiola's side went on a run of historic proportions, winning 16 of their final 17 league games, resulting in City beating Liverpool to the title by a grand total of 1 point. Another 20-plus goal season for Aguero helped get them over the line, while Raheem Sterling and Leroy Sané continued to produce amazing goal contributions. But a special shout out to Bernardo Silva and Aymeric Laporte are in order, as the pair racked up the 2nd and 3rd most league minutes played on the squad, as Laporte led the back line whenever company was unavailable despite his crucial screamer against Leicester, while Bernardo Silva took over for De Bruyne, who missed more than half the season due to injury. Liverpool would get their revenge the following season, however, winning the Premier League title in the midst of a global pandemic by a ridiculous 18 points. And without taking any credit away from Liverpool, you could point to Vincent Kompany leaving the club, and Aymeric Laporte suffering a serious injury 5 weeks into the season as a larger reason why City were so inconsistent. Leroy Sané also tore his ACL before the season even started. David Silva was also 34 now and closed the door on a legendary 10-year spell with the club at the end of the season. But on a much brighter note, Kevin De Bruyne managed to win Premier League Player of the Season after tying the record for most assists with 20, and Guardiola's squad was able to welcome some necessary improvements, as they signed Sergio Busquets' regen Rodri from Atletico Madrid, an offensively gifted fullback Joao Cancelo from Juventus, and there was even more change to come. Laporte's injury concerns and Fernandinho's age meant that City needed another center back. So Pep went out and bought 24-year-old Ruben Dias from Benfica, as well as Nathan Ake from Bournemouth. In attack, the squad had lost Leroy Sané, one of their most important players since Pep's arrival, in a lucrative move to Bayern Munich. And even though Mahrez had cemented himself into the team after Sané's ACL injury, the team got off to an absolutely miserable start. Guardiola's new 4-2-3-1 shape wasn't working, especially with regards to his fullbacks. So he ditched the 4-2-3-1 in favor of 2 different shapes dependent on De Bruyne's availability. The first shape being a 4-3-3 in defense with Alexander Zinchenko at left back and Cancelo at right back, that would organically shift into a 2-5-3 in attack, with Zini and Cancelo now playing as inverted wingbacks in the heart of midfield. Ball-playing specialists Ruben Dias and John Stones added even more possession play from the back, while Rodri protected everyone and recycled play non-stop. Sterling and Mahrez were asked to stay as wide as possible, while Gabriel Jesus filled in for an injured Aguero. But the real stars of the team were Gundogan and Bernardo Silva, as the Portuguese magician could glide through midfield like a knife through butter, while Gundo was tasked with arriving late in the box to score goals, which he did, ultimately becoming City's top scorer for the season with an impressive total of 13, as Guardiola's men went on to win their next 15 games in a row, jumping from 11th place to 1st, a feat achievable by Pep's second system change as the team finished the season in a 4-4-2. With De Bruyne and Silva serving as City's 2 false nines, allowing Riyad Mahrez to partner with 20-year-old academy product Phil Foden on the wings. City were able to secure another Premier League title in a year full of change and adaptive tactics as a result of lacking a true number 9. And with legend Sergio Aguero leaving the club in the summer, Guardiola would face the same obstacle at the start of the 2021-22 season, but solved it by coaching arguably the most fluid offensive lineup in all of Europe. As record signing, Jack Grealish joined a cast of characters that could rotate between attacking positions, as Phil Foden literally played almost everywhere from false 9 to left wing and central midfield, while Gabriel Jesus was transformed into a right winger while jumping right back into a false 9 when necessary. This iteration of Guardiola's side was honestly a 4-3-3 in name only, though it's worth noting that Cancelo was moved to left back while Kyle Walker returned at right back. A healthy Laporte paired with Ruben Diaz meant that this City side were actually better defensively than the Centurions, as the squad fought neck and neck with Klopp's Liverpool again, and beat them to the title by 1 point for the second time in 3 seasons. Guardiola replaced Sergio Aguero's goals by turning all of his attackers into dual threats, as evidenced by having a ridiculous total of 7 players in the squad reach double-digit goals and assists in the Premier League alone. But with Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling set to leave in the summer, it was time for Pep to go all in on signing a striker. Erling Braut Haaland was the most coveted young striker on earth in the summer of 2022, but Alfie Haaland's son would sign with his father's former club in June, and arrived in Manchester with expectations as mammoth as his frame. And he absolutely shattered them all. At time of recording, Haaland has scored 36 goals in 34 league appearances, breaking Mohamed Salah's modern Premier League record of 32 while also nabbing 7 assists. To contextualize these numbers, when we divide his total minutes played by his total goal contributions, we find that Haaland is either scoring or assisting a goal every 61 minutes that he's on the field. Haaland has just been in a league of his own this year, and has taken the pressure and spotlight off a Man City squad that also added centre-half Manuel Akanji and holding midfielder Calvin Phillips, while also saying goodbye to longtime servant Fernandinho and the versatile Zinchenko. Zinny would make a home for himself at Arsenal under the tutelage of Pep's former assistant Mikel Arteta, as master and student were embroiled in an enthralling title race the whole season, until the young Gunner squad ultimately capitulated in the month of April. The experience, quality, and tactical brilliance of the City squad propelled them to a 15-game unbeaten run from February all the way to May, as Guardiola's 5th act saw him perfect his latest reinvention, the box midfield. As the name suggests, the midfield is composed of 4 players spread out in the shape of a box, with a double pivot base usually consisting of a defensive protector and a more creative but still defensively sound partner, or John Stones and Rodri in this case, while the top of the box is occupied by well-rounded number 8s or the pairing of an 8 with a number 10, or Ilkay Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne for our purposes. Guardiola also handled the bitter departure of João Cancelo after the World Cup incredibly well, largely thanks to the rise of left-sided centre-back Nathan Ake. After beating Arsenal in April, City soon surpassed them on the table and never looked back, as the Gunners lost to Nottingham Forest, completed their collapse and clinched Guardiola's 5th Premier League title in 7 years. And some people might point to the oil money as the primary reason for City's dominance, even though other English clubs have spent just as much, if not more, in the transfer window only to yield incomparable results. The legality of City's financial statements have also been the subject of recent scrutiny, but until verdicts are rendered, I'm compelled to put my hands in the air and simply give credit where credit is due. Pep Guardiola arrived in Manchester and transformed a talented but aging and underperforming squad into the Centurions, consistently triumphed in his rivalry with Jurgen Klopp's relentless Liverpool side, and won league titles without needing a prolific striker, before ultimately signing the best one on the market to secure his 5th Premier League trophy. 5 trophies won in just as many unique play styles by 5 different sets of core players, legends of the game that will now ultimately be remembered as one collective, and in my opinion, as the most dominant dynasty in the history of English football. Thanks for watching, everyone. That was a lot of work, so smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more video essays like these. And if you want a breakdown of City's opponents in the Champions League final, you can click right here. Till next time, everyone.